Hello, students. This is Mr. Torres. I just wanted to take a moment to record this video. We're kind of going to be pivoting or changing the way that we do things in class. So I think our time would be better served with me helping you through practicing this as a group in small groups rather than me kind of standing at the front and walking you through the basics. I'll still walk you through the basics, but what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip that, and I'll walk you through the basics in these videos, and then we'll have you watch these videos at home, take some notes, and then practice in class. I think that would be a much better way to spend our time. Okay, so first we're going to go ahead and start with what a sonnet is. And I chose to do a sonnet study at the beginning of the year because I feel like if you can really grasp onto analyzing poetry and having strategies to analyze poetry, then those strategies translate to other bits of analysis, analyzing other poems, analyzing shorter bits of fiction, analyzing long bits of fiction as well. So we're going to start with sonnets. And one thing that makes poetry difficult or intimidating for students in the classroom is they find it hard to find where do I start. And I equate analyzing poetry to wrestling with a bull. Okay, so you may have heard the phrase grab the bull by the horns. And a bull is a big, strong, intimidating creature. But if you can grab a bull by the horns, or a cow, I have a lot of friends who did rodeo when I was young, you can pretty much make that animal do what you want it to do. And that's the kind of approach that we're going to take with sonnets and poetry. We're going to start by finding something to grab onto for meaning, and then we're going to peel back those layers of meanings. So the first thing that you want to do whenever you encounter any poem is I start by laying out the structure of a poem. The first thing that I do is I am going to number the lines. So you'll notice that I've numbered the lines in each poem here, okay? And I'm really only going to walk you through this poem here, Whoso Lists to Hunt by Sir Thomas Wyatt. And then in class, I'll have you practice in groups with Sonnet 116. And then individually on your own, I'll have you practice One Day I Wrote Her Name Upon the Strand. So we number the lines first. The next thing that I would have you do is I would have you... Sorry about that, y'all. My video cut off. After you number the lines, you should notice that each of these poems, which is identified as a sonnet, has 14 lines. Okay, so that's where we're going to start with our definitions over here in the top left-hand corner. So I'm going to say a sonnet is 14 lines of what we call iambic pentameter. And this phrase doesn't mean a whole lot right now, but it will in our next video. So 14 lines of iambic pentameter. Each line containing 10 syllables. Okay? Now, you learned about syllables when you were first learning to read. You may remember clapping your hands, syllable, to count the number of syllables in words. I find that in high school, some students still have difficulty with syllables. And so one really good way to count the number of syllables in what you're reading is you place your hand directly under your chin, so where there's just a tiny bit of space between your chin and your hand. And when you speak or when you read a line of poetry, every time your chin touches your hand, that equals one syllable. So if you place your hand under your chin and you really draw out the word syllable, you'll notice that your chin touches your hand 3 times. So the word syllable has 3 syllables in it. It's a really good way to determine the number of syllables in each line. So we have 14 lines of iambic pentameter, each line containing 10 syllables, okay? The other way that we identify sonnets and types of sonnets is by their rhyme scheme, okay? So when I have students identify the structure of a poem, the next thing I have them do is determine, is there any kind of rhyme scheme? Okay, is there any kind of pattern? Okay, so a rhyme scheme is a pattern of rhymes at the ends of lines. Okay, so for Whoso Lists to Hunt, we would first identify our rhyme scheme by placing letters of the alphabet in this column right here, okay? And we would just start with the first letter of the alphabet. So we have this word here, hind. And hind, there's nothing before it. So we're gonna start with the letter A, okay? Then we're gonna look at more. Well, more does not rhyme with hind. So we would move on to the next letter of the alphabet. So we're gonna put a B there. Then we move on to soar. Well, soar rhymes with more. So since it rhymes, we're going to give it the same letter as the word that preceded it. Now we can go to the word behind. Behind rhymes with hind. So we're going to place an A because they have the same sounds, behind and hind. So they have the same sounds, so they get the same letters. Then we move on to mind. Mind rhymes with hind and behind, so we're going to give it an A. Then we have a for, which rhymes with soar and more. So we're going to give that a B because those had B's. Then therefore, well, it rhymes with a for, so that gets a B. Now we have the word wind, okay? Now wind, when you pronounce it wind, it doesn't rhyme with anything before it. But it kind of looks like it should rhyme with the word mind, behind, and hind, right? Because it has the IND, 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 and IND. So we are actually going to call that a rhyme. And we'll talk about that in the next video. That is called an I rhyme. An I rhyme looks like it should rhyme, but when you pronounce it, it doesn't actually rhyme. Now we have the word, that doesn't get a B. That actually gets an A. Now we have the word doubt. Well, doubt doesn't rhyme with anything before it, so we would move on to the next letter of the alphabet. So that would be C. Vain also doesn't rhyme with anything before it, so that gets a D. So we move on to the next letter in the alphabet. Plain rhymes with vain, so that gets a D. We have about, which rhymes with doubt, so that gets a C. Then we have the word am. Well, am doesn't rhyme with anything before it. We have am, no rhymes up here. So am is going to get the next letter in the alphabet. So that is an E. And then we have the word tame. Okay, now tame doesn't seem to rhyme with anything before it. But if you'll notice, we have this AM here, and then we have this AM here. This is going to be another type of rhyme that we have. This is called a slant rhyme. So it kind of sort of has the same sound, am and tame, right? So we're going to give that an E. Now, this may be just the author of the poem being a little bit creative, sonnets have certain rules, and so maybe he's just kind of bending the rules to kind of sort of get it where it needs to be. This could also be a holdover from an older pronunciation of a word. So it is entirely possible that this word was once pronounced tam. Okay. Now, I don't know that off the top of my head. You might not know that off the top of your head. Some research might help with that, but that is a possibility. But you'll notice that once we have written down our letters, we do have a pattern. We have A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, D, C, and then E, E. So based on this rhyme scheme, we can actually classify the poem Whoso Lists to Hunt as a certain type of sonnet. And if you look up here, we have our classifications. We have Italian sonnets, we have English sonnets, and we have Spenserian sonnets. And so we would look at the pattern that we have: A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, D, C, E, E, okay? And it looks like this most closely resembles an Italian sonnet, okay? Now, this pattern here, C, D, E, C, D, E, is not necessarily followed here, nor is C, D, C, D, C, D. It's not followed here, or C, D, C, D, E, E, C, D, C, D, E, E. That's not followed here. But it most closely resembles an Italian sonnet, okay? So we can actually even put or C, D, D, C, E, E here. Okay, that's the most complete resemblance to these classifications. So Whoso Lists to Hunt by Sir Thomas Wyatt, we would classify that as an Italian sonnet. Okay. So this is the first kind of bit of structure that we look at for any poem. Number the lines, identify whether or not there's a rhyme scheme. Okay. The next bit of structural clue that we can attribute to a sonnet is that sonnets contain, and I'm going to add this to this definition up here, they contain what is called a volta, also known as a turn, okay? And a volta is a rhetorical or tonal shift. Okay, so a rhetorical or tonal shift. Now, in an Italian sonnet, like we have here with Whoso Lists to Hunt, that rhetorical or tonal shift occurs in between some major units of division within this sonnet. Well, Mr. Torres, what do you mean major units of division? Well, if you look at the Italian sonnet here, we notice that it says that the sonnet is divided into two units, an octave and a sestet. And if you have some knowledge of word and roots, then you'll notice that octave, OCT, think about octopus, an animal with 8 tentacles. That means a group of 8 lines, okay? So we have an octave, and then we have a sestet. And a sestet, if you do the math, if we have 8 lines in the octave, the sestet then has 6 lines after it. And we group these lines like this. This is how I would note these groupings, okay? So here we have the octave, and then here we have the sestet. And in an Italian sonnet, that volta or rhetorical shift occurs usually in that transition. Okay, so let me get a different color pen here. And this, between the octave and the sestet, is usually where we would see the volta, the turn. That means there is going to be some kind of shift across this line here. Once this line here happens, something is going to change. All right. And also relating to structure and predictability. In the octave here, in an Italian sonnet, we are typically presented with problems or questions. In these first 8 lines, the speaker will give us problems or questions. Then, after the volta, the speaker, usually in the second 6 lines, arrives at solutions or answers. Solutions to those problems or answers to those questions. Okay? Now, I want to warn you, though, that in life, in poetry, just like in life, sometimes when we are given problems and questions, the solutions to those problems are not necessarily the Disney Channel solution to that problem. Things might not have a happy ending. The answers to the questions might not be the answers that we want. They might be hard truths, such as life. That is just the way that life is. Okay? So this pattern here for an Italian sonnet, notice the annotations that we have made around structure. Okay? It is the structure of a sonnet, the very strict rules of this sonnet, that allows us to predict and gives us something to hang on to for meaning. Okay? When we get into analyzing this poem, these first 8 lines, we should see a problem that will help us uncover meaning. Then, when we analyze these second 6 lines, we should see solutions or answers, and that will help us uncover more meaning. Okay? It is this pattern that is going to give us our first piece, our first thing to hold on to with this poem. Okay? A quick note on other types of sonnets. For instance, English sonnets. Okay? English sonnets, you'll notice that I have my lines numbered here, 1 through 14. But the rhyme scheme in English and Spenserian sonnets are a little bit different from Whoso Lists to Hunt. Okay? So I want you to take a moment to pause the video, and I want you to identify the rhyme scheme for Sonnet 116, okay, this sonnet right here, okay? Put your column here in a straight line. I know it's tempting to put it here after each line, but you'll notice this kind of becomes a little bit messy, especially in this kind of sonnet. So put it in a straight column so that you can more easily see that pattern. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video, and then we can come back. Okay, so you've had some time to identify the rhyme scheme of Sonnet 116 by William Shakespeare. When I identified the rhyme scheme, this is what I came up with: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, there is a very real chance that you did not come up with this rhyme scheme, but that might be because you are overlooking some of the things that we noticed about this rhyme scheme up here. Remember when we said that wind and mind, when you pronounce them, they don't necessarily sound the same, but they look like they should rhyme because of the IND and IND. Those would be I rhymes, okay? Same kind of thing is happening down here with Sonnet 116, okay? So love and remove. They do not rhyme when you say them. However, they do look like they should rhyme because of the OVE at the end. So those would be I rhymes as well. Now, come and doom here. The only sounds that kind of match each other are the final sound, come, doom, right? The sound at the end. So those are technically rhymes. That would be kind of a slant rhyme. And then proved and loved. Okay, again, the only sounds that rhyme with each other are the vd and vd. Proved, loved. Okay, so these would technically classify as rhymes. Okay, so we have a different kind of rhyme scheme here as well. The rhyme scheme, once you have noted that pattern, you can use it to come up here and classify the sonnet. And so you'll look at what is remaining. We have an English sonnet and a Spenserian sonnet remaining. And based on the rhyme scheme, the pattern that we have here, you should notice that this happens to be, and I'll pause so you can look. Sonnet 116 is an English sonnet. English sonnets are also sometimes called Shakespearean sonnets. Shakespearean sonnets, okay? Called Shakespearean sonnets because they are made famous by the greatest to ever do it, William Shakespeare, okay? He really took the sonnet form and just magnified it. Much of his work, most of his work is in sonnet form. His sonnets are iconic throughout history. So after we have the rhyme scheme identified, we have the numbers, the lines numbered. We then want to break up this sonnet into its major units of division, okay? English sonnet units, okay? So here, this tells us that the English sonnet has 3 quatrains, okay? Now, again, if you're familiar with words and roots, you'll notice that a quatrain, quad, is groups of 4, right? And that tells you here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So we would divide these into groups of 4. Here's my first grouping of 4. Here's my second grouping of 4. And here's my third grouping of 4. It's divided into 3 quatrains with a concluding couplet, okay? Couplet, couple, 2, right? So then here is our final group of 2. So here, I'm just going to put quatrain 1, quatrain 2, quatrain 3, and then here, I'm just going to abbreviate couplet CPLT, couplet. And in our divisions here, let's go ahead and group on this side as well. CD, CD, excuse me, EF, EF, and GG. The Shakespearean sonnet follows a somewhat similar pattern as the Italian sonnet here, as far as problems and questions and solutions and answers. Somewhat similar, okay? So in the first quatrain, the first 4 lines of a Shakespearean or English sonnet, we are presented with a problem or a question. In the second 4 lines of the English sonnet, we are presented with some kind of complication to that problem. The problem gets complicated, as happens in life. The third quatrain, EF, EF, we are usually given some kind of example, or sometimes there is a contrast. And then in the concluding couplet, we are given our answer or solution. Okay? This is the pattern that we see typically in English or Shakespearean sonnets. And it is this pattern which will give us, again, something to hang on to for meaning. When we start analyzing these first 4 lines, okay, we need to be looking for what is the problem. Second 4 lines, how does that problem get complicated? Third 4 lines, what example or contrast is the speaker giving us? And then in the couplet, what answer is given to us, okay? And since we are given an answer in that couplet, we sometimes call the concluding couplet, we'll say also known as the heroic couplet, okay? Because we get our answer, right? We had a problem, now the problem is solved, okay? Again, as with life, the answer to that problem is oftentimes, not always, the answer that we desire, but it is reality. Now let's talk about the volta in an Italian sonnet, okay? Because we have this kind of pattern here: problem, complication, example, then answer. This pattern should tell you where the volta would occur. So I want you to pause this video here, and I want you to draw a line between whichever major unit of division you believe, based on this information here, where might the volta occur? Would it be here? Would it be here? Or would it be here? I'll pause the video. Okay, we're back. Now, we're just practicing. So if you got this wrong, that's perfectly fine, okay? But I will tell you that the volta in a Shakespearean sonnet typically occurs at this moment here, okay? The reason is, here we're talking about problems, here we get our answer. And that's as basic as we can get, okay? So this is a Shakespearean sonnet, an English sonnet. Your task now, what I'm going to have you do with your groups, is you are going to do the same kind of process with this last kind of sonnet up here. And your task is going to be to just kind of break down the structure of it, okay? What are the major units of division? What is our rhyme scheme? Identify the type of sonnet it is. It will be easy because of process of elimination. But that's what you want to do. You'll notice that this sonnet is slightly different from the other 2 sonnets, but it does have some of the same characteristics as the sonnets before it. The final kind of sonnet is basically an evolution of one of the sonnets that we've seen already. So that's what you're going to do in class. I hope this has been very helpful, and we'll see you in class to practice these skills.